Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today about your new book, The Hopeful Neighborhood. Um, what happens when Christians pursue the common good? How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. The weather is getting better, and that is very connected to my heart. And for some reason, I'm ready for it.
Absolutely, yeah. I probably can't relate since I live in Colorado and we just
Oh,
had 23 inches of snow, but
that's
uh,
right.
but but I'm hoping to get there.
Yeah,
Um, so about the book, there's a lot about cherishing place in the neighborhood and building that up, and that's a needed subject in today's divisive and just isolated world. But before we get into the depth of that, as I was reading the book, I think one of the things that really struck me is like was a quote of yours where you were discussing as a child you worked with your classmates as a team and you were developing
yeah,
this friendship. But the part that really hit me was you said, then as you started to grow older, you treated people as other.
yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that's probably true. People, as the people get older, people that aren't them are other. And yeah, it's kind of sad, but I'm curious if you have any thoughts as to what causes people to develop that way as we become adults.
Yeah, probably lots of reasons, but I would say like theologically, our flesh. When I read the Bible and about the fall and what that did to us and our propensities, there is something in the brokenness of our flesh that we do that, right, Michael? We look at others as other. The biblical language that, and I've been exploring this teaching throughout the Old and New Testament about showing partiality. That's like the biblical language for I'm going to treat some people differently than I treat others, and because I see them in a different way, and so how I see them differently, and so I treat them differently. And the Bible is not a huge fan on the act of showing partiality, right? We're told God shows no partiality because he created everyone. In the New Testament, multiple times we're told, don't show partiality, right? So I think there's something, I think it's connected to how we see each other. It seems to be in the biblical sense that if we see that everyone is created by God, we will inherently treat them, we will understand that they are kind of imbued with dignity and worth because God made them. And that will affect how we treat them. And so obviously it's a deeper question. We all ask, can't we all just get along? And usually the answer is apparently no.
Right.
But I think some of it gets down to just this first article, like how do we see other people? And I think as Christians, we can so focus on the transformation of when you come to faith and what it means to come to faith that I think as Christians, we sometimes then look down at people who aren't Christians and then find ourselves treating them differently. So, man, it's endemic to our fallen human race.
Yeah, that's too bad. Um, we're already heading that direction, but I'll go ahead and ask the question as well. Is maybe you could explain why you feel it is so important that people do take community
Mm-hmm.
and their place as something that is important and should be nourished. And that doesn't mean just Christians either. That's the
Yeah,
human race, right?
that's right. A lot of the work we've been doing with Barna on how do people relate with their neighborhoods is kind of paired with this biblical study and looking at church history for the reality that God created us to be in relationship with the people and place right around us. We see this in the Garden of Eden, right? That we're meant to pursue the well-being of the people who are around us and the place that's around us, including the trees and the nature and the animals, et cetera. And that there's a lot in the Old Testament, for example, not just on how we should treat the people around us, but how we should treat the place around us as well. And so we see that thread throughout Scripture that humans are created. So this is a creational mandate, not a Christian mandate per se, as you mentioned, a creational mandate that God the Creator created us in his image to tend the garden, right? To be in relationship with each other. And there's no indication that even when we were kicked out of the garden as an act of mercy, so we wouldn't be fallen creatures for eternity, there's no indication that when we got kicked out of the garden, that that initial calling to pursue shalom, to pursue peace and well-being for the people and place right around us, that went away. And that all humans are created, it's like hardwired into us to want to pursue the well-being of the people and the place right around us. And that's a lot of what we explore in the book, is kind of that theme throughout scripture, and then also throughout church history, how that's been lifted up in seasons, how that's not been lifted up in other seasons, kind of this idea of, as it's been put throughout church history, pursuing the common good. That part of what humans are created to do is to pursue the common good. And for most of the church's history, that's been lifted up as a real feature and virtue of the Christian life. But then there are other seasons when we don't think about that as much.
Right. And I've had a lot of interviews with people about sacred space and how we develop that space and see the good in things. And, I know if we accept Jesus as Lord, tells us the world is not going to like us, but we're supposed to love everybody.
Yeah.
So, it's fun being a Christian. It is. But with that being said, why would you say that Christians do have a special role in developing that common good?
There's something about, right, we're all fallen, which means we're curled in on ourselves and we're selfish and we see things wrong, etc. And when you come to faith, there's, right, Michael, there's something like we can rest in God's arms again, right? We know we're loved. And so a lot of our self-protection, a lot of that stuff of the fall, we can start shedding that, right? So there's something about being saved that frees us up from having to be selfish, because we know I'm loved, I don't have to be grabby anymore. And so we're like, because God cares for us, we're freed up to say, oh, I don't have to be focused on myself. Like, I can think about the people and place right around me. So we're like uniquely cared for as Christians in a way to take the lead. And we happen to follow a God and follow a Jesus who says, love your neighbors and even love your enemies, and seek the welfare of the city and pursue good, and people will see your good works and it will give glory to your God in heaven. So we are prepared to be more kind and caring, to pursue the common good. And our King asks us to, that he asks us to love others and to love everyone always, not just, right? Jesus made a particular point of this. Don't just love people that you like or that are like you or that love you. Love people who annoy you. Love jerks. Love your enemies. What a beautiful upside down kingdom ethic. And so I think that, to answer your question, why should Christians take a lead in caring about their neighbors, in caring about their neighborhood? Because God calls us to.
Absolutely. Well, and you pointed out in the book as well, it is easy to get caught up in your work, your missions, your activities. And then, before you know it, I live in a neighborhood, I forgot there was one even around, right?
That's right.
With that being said, do you have maybe a couple of steps you'd like to share for Christians that do want to maybe make their neighborhood their own? And in this postmodern world, it makes it even more difficult. But what are some of the steps towards that, maybe?
Yeah, great question, Michael. Two things I'd say off the bat. Number one, to reconnect with your neighborhood. So the research tells us that we are less connected to the people in place who live right around us than we were, say, 50 years ago. And there's a variety of fascinating reasons why that's the case, but a lot of people are living above place. They are living their life, and they commute to work over here and commute to school over here, etc., commute to church over there, without any meaningful connection. So the one thing I would say to people is reconnect with your neighborhood. Get to know your neighbors again. Get to know the place around you. Go on more walks. So there's a variety of ways people can do that. In fact, in relation to the book, we developed neighborhood bingo. So you can get these bingo cards, and each space is a little small thing you can do to get to know your neighborhood a little bit more. So you could do it with your small group, right? Say, let's see who gets bingo first in getting to know their neighborhood a little more. And then the second thing I'd say, like, we need to be reconnecting. And then the second thing is look for a way to make a difference. Not in a big way. Start with something small. And in the book, Hopeful Neighborhood, I have lots of little examples. And we actually launched this nationwide network called the Hopeful Neighborhood Project. And we have coaches, we have online tools, we have all these things to help people who want to make a difference in their neighborhood. And so hopefulneighborhood.org, we just have all these ideas and ways to get a coach or do a process if you want to do a full-on process and join other neighbors together to do it. So whether it's little or big, reconnect, and then just look for one way to make a difference in your neighborhood. Could be so simple. In Colorado right now, shoveling your walk and the walk of the person next door, right? Doesn't have to be a big thing. But if we start small in reconnecting and making a difference, what we have found, and the research backs this up, it actually goes a long ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll put a link to the website as well on this. So after people listen to the article and they're all pumped up and ready to make their neighborhood their own, drop down a little bit lower, hit the link, and see some of the activities they can do. They'll be great. I think we're coming close to an end. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with the audience before we leave?
Yeah, the final thing that I would share, that having published this book has given me a unique window into, in an age when obviously division, bitterness, divisiveness, right? Those are the headlines, right? I've been so blessed to be getting story after story of people reaching out and sharing how God's calling them to love their neighborhood and how it's giving them hope. Imagine that, Michael, in our day and age, hope. And so the last thing I would say to folks is, if the headlines are depressing you, turn off the TV, shut the laptop, and walk out your front door. The possibilities for hope just in that really micro local area, it turns out, are really fun and really exciting. So I just want to speak a message of hope over your listeners that even today, there's lots of love and sacrifice and beauty and reconciliation happening, and we get to play along with that.
Absolutely. Well, I think I absolutely agree with you with turn off the TV. I've just decided to quit watching the news, but I thought, well, I'll just take a look at some of the headlines today and make
That's
sure
right.
I'm not, my head's not totally in the sand. And I'm like, wow, it's a lot like a soap opera. You can go for months and months, you get back on and it's the same thing.
Kind of the same show.
So the idea is read a book.
There you go. There you go. Find some hope. That's right. That's right.
Absolutely. All right, sir. Well, thank you so much for talking with us and for writing the book.
Thank you, Michael, for having me on and for thinking alongside me. Good to talk.